Hey guys, it's Leesh, and welcome to another episode of Car Confessions. Guys, listen, I am recording a bit earlier than what I normally record. It's Monday. Um, what's today's date? 14th, April 14th. And I have to record early because I have to head home because I had a death in the family. So I'm just trying to do all the things that I normally do, get it all done. And yeah, so that's why I'm recording today. I'm pretty sure everything I'm talking about today, if it's current event based, God bless, it's probably gonna be like beyond old news. But how are you all doing? Like literally, how are you doing? I am so curious, and I wish we could have like an interactive kind of thing because it's just interesting to see what's going on in the world and hear some people's reactions, see some people's reactions, and then think about how you're feeling and how you're reacting, and for me, like, I'm seeing these things. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. These things are infuriating, whatever. And at the same time, I'm feeling great. Like, I don't know if that's how you're feeling, but I don't, I'm not in despair. I'm not in this space of like, oh my gosh, you know, because the country's falling apart, I'm falling apart. And it's like, no, I'm not there. I mean, and I don't want to seem insensitive or anything to things that are going on because that's not the case at all. Because when I think about things like Kilmar Abrego Garcia and his situation being deported to El Salvador, basically kidnapped. Let's be serious. I think about stuff like that, and I'm just like, at what point do the people in this administration and even in within this American system not realize that they're like how do you not know these are people, you know what I'm saying? And they're human just like you. They have families, they think and feel, they hurt, they have joy just like you. It's mind-blowing to me that it requires some sense of like it's not even a requirement. What am I saying? There is no like I had to think about that. No, there are no limits in these people's heads to what they will do to get whatever they want, which is crazy and heartbreaking and disturbing. It's just like, really? Like, you're willing to sacrifice everything to uphold white supremacy in this thing here in this country, like racism and all the things? It's unbelievable. And you're proving what type of point. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I'm really at with it when it comes to him being deported. Like what is the point? Because he's an American citizen. You're basically just exposing more of the racist propaganda and agenda that has been keeping this whole system alive since it started. Like my heart goes out to his family. Seriously, because it's just like, what? Like I couldn't even imagine. I could not imagine just in a state of like limbo. Like I don't know where my loved one is. I don't know if they're dead or alive. I don't know what they've done to this person. If they're still alive, are they like at this point as we speak? Are they torturing him? Like we don't know what's going on. But what I do know about that particular situation is in the event we find out or when we find out what's really going on with him, it's going to completely unravel all more things, not all, more things than we could ever imagine. Because for you to just illegally deport somebody, put them in, basically a jail in El Salvador, who knows what is happening over there. And so, like I said, in the event this man is alive, he comes back and he spills the beans, it's a wrap. It is a wrap because I cannot imagine that place being remotely humane. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but I can't imagine where they're putting people like him is, sanitary, safe. You know what I'm saying? Just nothing that will require his well-being. It's wild. It is wild. And I've said this so many times here on Car Confessions, but like when I'm talking about things like this, where does humanity begin and where does it end? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like when you have these types of thoughts where you feel like it's justified to do the things that you do to people like him, do you even have humanity within you? Like, are you someone who can exude like that type of those characteristics? I don't think so. I think it's a um de facto, is that how you call it? It's like a thing where you can um show some sense of like compassion and care to people around you and people that are within your particular group, racial group, ethnic group, whatever thing you associate with. You can have some humanity there, but I even think with that there are limits. You know what I'm saying? Because when you even think about people of European descent and you look at their history, a lot of it has to do with fighting and barbaric things that were done to their own people. So this is like something that goes beyond what we're seeing right now. This is just a part of the fabric, unfortunately, with some people of European descent. And I'm not saying everybody, so let's be clear. This is not everybody that I'm talking about, but this is a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to call it what it is. I mean, it's not a easy thing to, just, oh yeah, this is what it is. It's not easy to say, but it's what it is. Like, this has been happening since God knows how long. And what we see is there's just continuous violence, nonstop, nonstop. So it's just crazy. It's crazy to me that this is just continuing on. There has been really no let up to the violence, no let up to the toxicity that this country was started on. In which, for me, it speaks to how everything that we have been taught, everything that we know about this country, everything that we think is the quote unquote way the system should work should be completely dismantled. And people have always asked me, like, why do you say that? Why do you think the system should be completely um, basically dismantled and rebuilt? Well, if you look at what's going on in this country when it comes to the everyday person, and this is not even on a racial scale, this is just in general. If you meet a certain criteria financially, you're fine. You can just skate through life and live your best life. You may not even have to pay taxes if you're in the highest financial bracket. So I mean, you're living life like it's golden. And a lot of this stuff is not even by way of anything you've done. You might have been born into financial riches like that. You might just have the right skin complexion. It could be a lot of things. So knowing that there are tiers to living well by way of your financial situation. Why? Like, why? Especially given that a lot of people who are millionaires, billionaires, whatever, and it's not everyone, but a lot of them did not do much of anything to get to this status. Right? And so, because by default you're rich, you deserve all the things. Meanwhile, there are people out here who are busting their butts just to have 2 or 3 nickels. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But then when I think about, on the flip side, I think about all the things that are happening with China exposing the retail situation that we all know as being, high end things, shoes, clothes, purses, and all these different things that we think are, worth all this money, and finding out that not only are they not even worth a fraction of what they're charging, they're made right there in China. Of course, the people in China in these factories and wherever else these things are made, they can tell you firsthand how it's made, the quality of the materials, all these things, and what it's worth. And that brings me right back to what I was just saying, the worth. We have been conditioned to think that people who have this or are part of a certain tax bracket are worth more, right? Because they have all this money. And when you've come down to the core of it all, it's like they're just a human being like anybody else. Why is their worth wrapped up in their, in the money that they, have, right? Because like I said, when it comes down to it, we're all human beings. Like, there's nothing that's going to change the fact that I, have to sleep. I need rest, just like any other person on this planet. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee. I have to poop. You know what I'm saying? I gotta eat. I need water to survive. All of these things we all need. I need love. I need, compassion. I need human interaction. Everybody needs those things. And so my needs not only should be met, it should be a human right like anybody else. I should have a right to living well. I should have a right to eating well, sleeping well, living in a very nice place without killing myself in order to financially afford it, working to the bone. Why is there such a divide, right? And I'm so glad. And if you don't know about what I'm talking about when it comes to the Chinese, exposing a lot of the retail purchases that many of us buy, and some of us that buy the more high-end things, like they were talking about, said Hermes bags. I forgot how much they said, but it's over like $30,000-$40,000. Some of these bags cost. These shoes that you buy that have a high ticket price, and you find out they don't cost hardly anything before they put the name on it, Nike, whatever. And I'm not calling out Nike or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is, right? And so it really allows you to start, or at least for me, to sit back and start really evaluating, like, what is worth? Like, who created what's worthy, what's not worthy, what should be high end, what should not be high end? Because even if you listen to my last podcast episode about food gentrification, and that's not the title, but it's listen to the last episode, and it talks about that, how certain foods have been gentrified. And at one point, some of these foods were not even considered hot commodity. Like, they were just kind of like, the poor man's food, or what they would give to slaves. And even when you think about that, you think about like foods like I talk about the kale in that episode. Kale was not considered this, high, commodity type food, and now it is. They're making kale chips. They're doing this. They're doing that. Even down to things like lobster, oysters. Those things were for slaves. So, like, how does one thing become worthy and then it's not worthy? How does one thing become high end and then it's not high end? It's all something that has been a construct of men. And when I say men, I mean people in general. People create these narratives and place worth on things, and then we just kind of follow suit because it presents as the societal norm, right? You have these people with all this influence. They say, oh yeah, the lobster now is worth $100 a lobster, right? And we're like, okay, they said it, so that's what it is, right? I think we have to start thinking about that when it comes to us as humans too. Who said I'm less worthy because of this skin color, right? Who says that Kilmar Abrigo Garcia is less worthy because of who he is as a human being, or who they assumed he was? He was an American. He is an American citizen, but because of his skin color, because of what he looks like, it was assumed that he was illegally here. And even breaking it down beyond that, like the determination of your legal status versus you not being legal is crazy to me, because it all comes down to money. If you financially, well, not all of it, but a lot of it is, at the end of the day, it's all about money. If you can financially, obtain that, you're good. Then also there's loopholes with that. We see where he is, it's just like, it's wild. It's wild because at one point it was about that. It was about the fact that, oh, you can't, you're here illegal, you can't pay your citizenship, and so now you must be deported or whatever the hell, right? But now it's just strictly going by a racial profiled component. And, God help people who are out here who are legally here and could potentially be kidnapped and deported because of the way they look. It's wild. It is wild. And it's heartbreaking. Because, like I said, at what point do we say enough is enough? Where is the cap on this? because you have full-blown criminals that are running this country, and it's just like, that's just what they're doing, right? I mean, the Supreme Court has put, has basically said that, they have to bring him back, talking about Mr. Garcia, back to this country. But I'm like, when is that going to happen? Do they even know where he is? It's all these questions, right? It's all these questions that hopefully we'll get answers to soon. But it just speaks to what so many marginalized people have been talking about for years, that this country does not truly care about its citizens. It's about the bottom line, which is money. Who's got the money? Who doesn't have the money? And with that, because that's such a disgusting way of, you know, classifying worthiness for humanity. That's why I say this whole system just needs to be completely done with, and we start anew. There's no reason for us to sit here and think that someone is more worthy than the next because they have more money or they have more education or whatever, right? There has to be a change. And there's small changes happening, right? But I hope more people are opening their eyes to see, like, oh, this is not it. Things need to change pronto, No one deserves to be in a situation where they don't feel safe, where they don't feel like they're worthy, and where they feel like no matter what they do, they're never going to be good enough. And that's what this country is doing to a lot of people, a lot of black and brown people. And that's what they've been doing for years, years and years and years. And it's like, at what point do we stop this? Because at the end of the day, regardless of it being a racial thing, racism is messing up everybody. When you uphold racism and you are a poor person, you're not helping yourself. You're not. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people, and I grew up in Indiana, southern Indiana, and a lot of these people are just everyday working people trying to make it like everybody else, but will vote against their own interest to support this whole racist agenda. And I think it has to come to a point where a lot of these people who have been on that bandwagon of supporting racism wake up and just say, you know what? Maybe this isn't really working. Maybe I should change my thought process on this, because a lot of it is mindset. We have to change minds. It's one thing to put all these, laws into place and this, that, and the other, but if people's minds aren't changed, you see what's happening or what has happened. A lot of the, things, Roe v. Wade, completely reversed because people's minds have not been changed in the way of understanding that these things are for the betterment of all. The mind shift is what is needed, among other things. But I think we need to start there with the mind, changing people's minds, not so much convincing people, but showing people and allowing them to independently see that this is not it. But it requires them to do that, definitely does. Oh, and just sending good, positive energy to Mr. Garcia's family and to those who are in his situation, to them, praying for their safety, praying that they're not being harmed. And if they are, that somehow these things get turned around. Because this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't know. This country, God bless. That's all I can say. But you know what? We have the power to make change. So continue to work on yourselves, be a better person, and do what you have to do. Because that's where change begins, is within us, All right, guys, I'm home. I'm going to head upstairs, get myself together. But as I say, let's just keep on keeping on. And hey, I'll see y'all next week. All right.